As morning sunlight filtered into the residential neighborhood outside Boston, Rachel Harrison's kitchen was already full of life. Rachel worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, and mornings were precious time with her family. Her husband, David, had already left for the real estate office, so now it was just Rachel, their 6-year-old daughter Emma, and their 3-month-old son, Liam. Emma sat at the kitchen table, gripping her small spoon and carefully bringing each bite of cereal to her mouth. In her navy blue school jumper, she looked like a little lady. Rachel sat beside her daughter, holding Liam as he drank from his bottle. The baby's tiny hand occasionally gripped Rachel's finger, and each time, her heart filled with warmth. "Mommy, they're having pizza for lunch today," Emma said happily. "That's wonderful," Rachel smiled. "But make sure you eat your vegetables too." "I know." Emma pouted a little, but quickly broke into a smile. Glancing at the clock, Rachel saw it was nearly 8. Today was a special day. The new babysitter was coming for the first time. Her name was Melissa, a woman David had introduced as his co-worker's sister. She was supposedly certified in childcare, which gave Rachel peace of mind. Her freelance work had gotten busier lately, and managing Liam's care while taking Emma to and from school was becoming increasingly difficult. The doorbell rang. Rachel settled Liam into his bouncer and headed to the front door. When she opened it, a young woman with a bright smile stood there. Her chestnut hair was neatly pulled back to her shoulders, and she wore clean jeans and a sweater. "Good morning, Mrs. Harrison. I'm Melissa Carter." "Good morning, Melissa. Please come in." Melissa entered the house and immediately spotted Liam in his bouncer, speaking to him in a gentle voice. "Oh, what a beautiful baby. You must be Liam." Her voice had a natural warmth to it, and Rachel felt a bit reassured. "This is my daughter Emma." Rachel gestured to her daughter in the kitchen. Emma slowly emerged from the kitchen, but kept her distance from Melissa. Usually so friendly with people, today she was uncharacteristically reserved. "Hello, Emma." "That's a pretty dress," Melissa said kindly. Emma quietly said, "Thank you," but immediately hid behind her mother. Rachel placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Emma, you don't need to be shy. Melissa is a nice person." Melissa maintained her smile without seeming bothered. "That's perfectly fine. It's natural for children to take time to get comfortable. I worked at a daycare for 5 years, so I'm used to it." Rachel showed Melissa around the house, explaining Liam's feeding schedule, where the diapers were kept, and emergency contact information. Melissa took careful notes and asked appropriate questions. With her perfect resume and recommendation letters from her previous employer, Rachel's concerns gradually faded. "All right, I'll take Emma to school and be back around 10 o'clock. Rachel kissed Liam and picked up her bag. "Have a good trip. Nothing to worry about," Melissa said reassuringly. Rachel called to Emma. "Ready?" Emma nodded slightly, but there was something in her expression that suggested she wanted to say something. While putting on her coat at the door, Emma kept looking back toward the living room. On the way to the car, Emma suddenly stopped. "Mommy, what? Hurry up! We're going to be late. I want to stay home from school today." Rachel looked at her daughter in surprise. Emma loved school, and this was the first time she'd said anything like this. "Why are you feeling sick?" Rachel touched her daughter's forehead. "No fever?" "No," but Emma struggled for words. "Emma, tell me why," Rachel asked gently. "I just want to stay home." Rachel thought for a moment, but when she checked the time, it was already past 8:20. "Emma, they're having pizza for lunch today. Remember? You were looking forward to it. Once you get to school, you'll feel better." Emma started to say something, but ended up just nodding. They got in the car and Rachel started the engine. Emma's face in the rearview mirror still looked worried. As she drove, Rachel mentally organized her schedule for the day. After dropping Emma off, she needed to get right back home and finish a logo design for a new client. The deadline was tomorrow. When they stopped at a red light, Rachel checked her smartphone for emails. There was an additional request from the client, and she let out a small sigh. "Mommy." A small voice came from the back seat. "Yes?" Rachel's eyes shifted to the rearview mirror. "Is Liam going to be okay?" "Of course. Melissa is certified in childcare, and she's Dad's co-worker's sister. She's someone we can trust." Emma didn't say anything, but kept turning around to look back toward home. Rachel noticed but understood her daughter's feelings. It was natural to worry about leaving her baby brother with someone else for the first time. They were 5 minutes from school. The leaves on the street trees shone beautifully in the morning sun. It was a typical, peaceful morning. Rachel drove the familiar route while thinking about work. The light turned red, and Rachel stopped the car. She glanced at her smartphone again and was starting to think about her reply to the client when it happened. Suddenly, a sharp scream came from the back seat. "Mommy, we need to go back right now!" Rachel whipped around in surprise. Emma's face was deathly pale, tears welling in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Rachel was shaken. She'd never seen Emma this upset before. "Please go home right now!" Emma cried out. "Emma, calm down. What happened?" Rachel pulled the car to the side of the road. A car behind them honked, but she didn't care. "I can't explain, but Liam's in danger!" Emma's voice trembled with fear. Rachel's heart started pounding. There was a seriousness and fear in her daughter's eyes she'd never seen before. In Rachel's mind, reason and instinct battled fiercely. Melissa was supposed to be trustworthy. Someone David had introduced his coworker's sister. Perfect resume, recommendation letters, childcare certification, everything checked out. And yet, seeing her daughter crying in the back seat, all logical thinking seemed ready to crumble. "Emma, please calm down." Rachel tried desperately to stay composed. "Melissa is trustworthy. Dad introduced her to us." "No, Mommy, please." Emma struggled to unbuckle her seatbelt, tears streaming down her face. "We have to go back, now. Liam is... What did you see? What happened?" Rachel grabbed her daughter's shoulders. Emma shook her head violently. "This morning, I didn't see anything, but..." But her voice broke with sobs. The face reflected in the rearview mirror was twisted with fear. A 6-year-old child doesn't normally get this desperate. A cold unease spread through Rachel's chest. Her maternal instinct whispered that something was wrong. Another car honked behind them. The light had turned green. Rachel took a deep breath. She had to make a decision. Trust reason or believe her daughter's plea? "Mommy, believe me, please." Emma's eyes locked onto Rachel's. There was no lie in those eyes. Rachel's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Okay," she said. "We'll go back." She quickly prepared to make a U-turn and pointed the car in the opposite direction. From the back seat, Emma whispered a small, "Thank you." Rachel's heart continued to pound violently. If nothing was wrong, she'd be laughed at as an overprotective mother. But if something was wrong, "Emma?" Rachel asked in as gentle a voice as she could manage while driving. "What did you see? Did Melissa do something?" Emma was silent for a while. Rachel sensed her daughter was hiding something. This morning, Emma's voice trembled. Melissa was on the phone. On the phone, Rachel frowned and she said, "Everything ends today." Rachel's hands nearly slipped on the steering wheel. "That's all, Emma." "That might have been a work call," she said, as if trying to convince herself. "No!" Emma shouted. She looked scary. She wasn't smiling, and her voice grew smaller, and Rachel prompted. The car continued racing toward home. After a long silence, Emma said in a trembling voice, "A month ago, I saw Daddy and Melissa kissing." Rachel's world stopped for a moment. The car wobbled slightly. "What did you say?" Her voice was low and hoarse. "I'm sorry, Mommy." Emma burst into tears. "I should have told you." But when? Where?" Rachel's voice shook. She could feel her heart raging in her chest. "A month ago," Emma answered through sobs. "When you went shopping, Daddy said a friend is coming over. But Melissa came and they—" Rachel almost slammed on the brakes, but somehow held back. Memories flooded back. A month ago, David had said he'd work from home over the weekend. Rachel had gone grocery shopping, and Emma was supposed to go with her, but her daughter had suddenly said, "I want to stay with Daddy." At the time, Rachel had thought it was sweet. It was good for father and daughter to bond. "Why didn't you tell me until now?" Rachel's voice held not anger, but deep sadness. Emma's voice came out strained. "Daddy said, if you tell Mommy, Daddy will go away. He said, because Emma's a bad girl, Daddy will go away." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. Her daughter had been carrying this secret alone for a whole month. It was too heavy a burden for a 6-year-old child. "Emma, you did nothing wrong," Rachel said in a trembling voice. "Absolutely nothing wrong." But this morning, when Melissa was on the phone saying, "I'll end it today," Emma continued, "she was looking at Liam's face with scary eyes and I got scared." Rachel's foot pressed down on the accelerator. The car picked up speed. All the pieces were beginning to form one terrifying picture. David and Melissa's affair. A relationship that had been going on for a month. No longer. And today, Melissa had come as a babysitter for the first time. The words, "Everything ends today. Mommy, will we make it in time?" Emma's voice reached her. "Well, make it." Rachel gritted her teeth. The drive home had never felt this long. Every light seemed red. Every car in front felt like an obstacle. Rachel's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. Worst-case scenarios flashed through her mind, one after another. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe Melissa's phone call really was about work. Maybe Emma had misunderstood the kiss. A 6-year-old's imagination sometimes blurs reality and fantasy. Rachel desperately tried to think that way, but her maternal intuition said otherwise. Something was wrong. Something was terribly wrong. Finally, their street came into view. Rachel quickly pulled the car to the curb. There was no time to park perfectly. She jumped out of the car, Emma following behind. As they ran to the front door, Rachel's heart pounded as if it would break through her chest. Her hands searched for the keys in her bag, but she was shaking and couldn't grasp them properly. Finally finding the keys, she tried to insert them in the doorknob, but her trembling hands wouldn't let them go in. "Mommy," Emma said quietly. Rachel took a deep breath. She had to calm down, had to stay composed. Finally, the key went into the hole and she turned the doorknob. The door slowly opened. What came from the entryway was silence, an unnaturally deep silence. No baby crying, no voice from Melissa, nothing. Normally, a house with a 3-month-old baby would have some kind of sound, but now, this house was as quiet as a tomb. Rachel's feet slowly stepped into the entryway. Emma clutched her mother's coat hem. They held their breath and headed toward the living room. Rachel's hands were trembling. The sound of her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Just a few more steps to the living room door. Rachel didn't want to imagine what she might see there, but she had to move forward. She stopped in front of the door, took a deep breath, and placed her hand on the doorknob. The moment she opened the door, Rachel froze completely at the sight that met her eyes. In the center of the living room, Melissa stood in front of Liam's crib. In her hand was a small, transparent bottle. It looked like medicine. Melissa was peering into the crib and didn't seem to notice Rachel and Emma had entered. Her profile held none of the gentle smile she'd shown that morning. It was cold, expressionless. "Melissa," Rachel's voice trembled. Melissa slowly turned around. Their eyes met. In that instant, Melissa's expression changed from surprise to confusion to a strange smile. "Oh," Melissa said in a calm voice, You're back early, Mrs. Harrison. Rachel took a step forward. What are you holding? This. Melissa held up the bottle. Just cough syrup. Liam was coughing a little. Liam wasn't coughing. Rachel's voice was low, taking on a dangerous tone. Get away from him. Just then, the sound of the front door opening. Rachel turned around. It was David who entered. Her husband stood there, pale, his eyes moving back and forth between Melissa and Rachel. Rachel, this is... David's voice shook. Rachel glared at her husband. David, why are you here? You're supposed to be at work. David was at a loss for words. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His reaction told her everything. Melissa laughed quietly. That laugh held none of the morning's warmth. No more need for pretense, David. Ignoring Melissa, Rachel rushed to the crib. When she picked up Liam, the baby was limp. His eyes were open but unfocused. Usually, when he saw his mother's face, he'd reach out his hands, but today, there was no reaction at all. What did you do to him? Rachel's scream echoed through the living room. Calm down, Rachel. David tried to approach. Don't touch me! Rachel glared at her husband. What did you do to him? Answer me, Melissa! Melissa shrugged. Just helped him sleep a little so he wouldn't suffer. A gentle method. Her voice held a terrifying calmness. In Rachel's mind, everything was starting to connect. Fear and anger mixed together and her body shook. You tried to kill him! My baby! Rachel, listen to me. David finally spoke. We be quiet. Melissa cut David off. It doesn't matter anymore. Let's tell her everything. It's over anyway. Melissa sat down on the sofa and crossed her legs. She looked relaxed, as if enjoying tea time. David and I have been together for 3 years. Did you know that Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe 3 years ago? That was when Emma was 3, before she got pregnant with Liam. It started by chance. Melissa continued. We met at a company party. David was wonderful, funny, ambitious. Unlike you. Her eyes looked coldly at Rachel. But there was a problem. Your family has money. Rachel's head started to feel hazy, but she held Liam tightly. If we divorced, David would only get half the assets, Melissa explained matter-of-factly. That wouldn't be enough, not for the life we dreamed of. So we thought of another way. An accident, David said quietly. His face was deathly pale. Melissa said she'd make it look like an accident. Rachel looked at her husband in disbelief. You agreed to this? David looked away. At first, I thought it was a joke, but Melissa was serious. Coward, Melissa said coldly. You could never make a decision until the end. This morning, too. You were supposed to go to work as planned. David's voice trembled. At the last moment, I got scared. I came back. In the corner of the room, Emma stood frozen. Rachel looked at her daughter, her heart feeling like it would tear apart. A 6-year-old child shouldn't have to hear such terrible truth. Emma. Rachel reached out to her daughter. Come here. Emma ran, crying to her mother, and was embraced in Rachel's arms. Rachel held Liam with one hand and Emma with the other arm. I'm sorry, Mommy, Emma cried. I knew for a month, but I couldn't tell you. It's okay, Emma. Rachel stroked her daughter's hair. You did nothing wrong. You were brave. You protected your brother. Melissa stood up. Touching scene, but there's no proof. I just came as a babysitter. The baby was coughing, so I was about to give him medicine. That's all. That's a lie, Rachel said sharply. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Melissa showed a confident expression. My resume is perfect. I have recommendation letters. My child care certification is real. All I have to say is you're an overprotective mother who suspected me. Rachel tried to take out her smartphone. Just then, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. She would normally ignore it, but some instinct made her answer. Hello, Mrs. Harrison. A woman's voice came through. This is Sarah, David's colleague. Call the police right now. Rachel's heart jumped. What? I looked into Melissa Carter. Sarah's voice was urgent. Her child care certification is forged, and there have been similar incidents at other homes in the past. 2 cases where babies were hospitalized with unexplained illnesses. Melissa was the sitter in both cases. Rachel looked at Melissa. The confident expression had vanished from her face. I already contacted the police, Sarah continued. David's behavior was strange, so I started investigating. This morning, he suddenly left the office, and he kept saying a woman named Melissa's name on the phone. Thank you, Sarah, Rachel said. I'm at home now. Both of them are here. Melissa suddenly moved. She started running toward the front door, but just then the sound of sirens came from outside. Blue and red lights filtered through the window. David collapsed on the spot. It's over. Everything's over. He covered his face with both hands. Melissa stopped in front of the front door. Police cars were already parked outside. She slowly turned around and looked at Rachel. For the first time, fear showed in her eyes. It was a perfect plan, Melissa muttered. I was supposed to have the perfect family. The door opened and police officers entered. Put your hands up. Melissa and David complied. As the officers handcuffed them both, Rachel held Emma and Liam close. Liam was still limp, but his breathing was stable. Please call an ambulance, Rachel said to the officer. He's been drugged. One's already on the way, the officer said kindly. It's okay, Mrs. Harrison. You're safe now. Rachel watched with cold eyes as Melissa and David were led away. David looked back and tried to say something, but Rachel looked away. There were no more words she wanted to hear. The ambulance arrived and the paramedics examined Liam. His breathing is stable, but let's do tests at the hospital just to be safe. Rachel nodded. Gripping Emma's hand, she climbed into the ambulance. As the vehicle pulled away, Rachel looked at their home through the window. In that house, she believed she was building a happy family. But it had all been an illusion. Her husband had been lying for 3 years, and today, her children's lives had been targeted. Emma said quietly, Mommy, are we not a family anymore? Rachel hugged her daughter. No, Emma, we are a family. A real family. You, me, and Liam. That's our family. The ambulance headed to the hospital. Rachel's heart was filled with fear, sadness, and, above all, anger. The white walls of the hospital waiting room were too bright for Rachel's tired eyes. While the doctor examined Liam, she sat with Emma on her lap. Her daughter buried her face in her mother's chest, trembling slightly. 30 minutes later, the doctor came out. The middle-aged female doctor said with a calm expression, Fortunately, the amount of medication didn't reach a lethal dose. It's a mild sedative. It'll be out of his system in a few hours. We'll keep him overnight for observation, but his life isn't in danger. The strength drained from Rachel's body. Thank you. Her voice trembled with tears. Mom, the doctor gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Because you and your daughter came back early, this child was saved. You're an excellent mother. When they entered Liam's hospital room with Emma, the baby was sleeping in a small bed. The monitor showed a regular heartbeat. Rachel sat in the chair beside the bed and held Liam's small hand. Emma snuggled up next to her mother. Mommy, Emma said quietly, is Liam okay? Yes, he's okay. Rachel stroked her daughter's hair. Thanks to you, Emma, because you were brave enough to tell me. New tears welled up in Emma's eyes. But if I'd said something a month ago... It's okay. Rachel hugged her daughter. Carrying such a terrible secret, how hard that must have been for a 6-year-old. But in the end, you did the right thing. That's what matters. That night, police came to the hospital for questioning. Emma gripped her mother's hand and told them everything she'd seen. The kiss from a month ago, Melissa's phone call that morning, her cold expression in a small voice, but clearly the daughter testified. The police officer said kindly, "Emma, you were very brave. Thanks to you, your brother was saved." A few days later, Rachel learned more details at the police station. Melissa's true identity was being revealed. The child care certification was an elaborate forgery. The recommendation letters were also forgeries of previous employers' signatures. And most terrifying was the fact that this wasn't the first time. The detective explained Melissa Carter has infiltrated 3 families over the past 5 years. In the first 2 cases, babies were hospitalized with unexplained illnesses. She disappeared before she could be suspected, so we couldn't prove anything. But this time, thanks to your colleague Sarah's investigation, everything connected. "Why?" Rachel asked. "Why would she do such things?" The detective sighed heavily. "She appears to have targeted married men from wealthy families. She was trying to eliminate the wife and children and take their place in the family." The psychiatric evaluation diagnosed her with severe obsessive personality disorder. Rachel felt nauseated. Her family had been the target of such a woman. What about David? It hurt even to say her husband's name. He'll be prosecuted as an accomplice to attempted murder. At first, we thought he might also be a victim, but when we checked email records, we found evidence he knew about the plan. There were signs he tried to stop it, but he never reported it to police. Rachel nodded. She had not a shred of sympathy left for David. 2 weeks later, Rachel started divorce proceedings. Her lawyer said, "Since your spouse is a criminal, the process will move quickly. Property division will also work in your favor." But for Rachel, money wasn't the issue. Her children's safety, that was all that mattered. Emma began having sessions with a school counselor twice a week. For the first few weeks, her daughter suffered from nightmares. She often woke up crying and screaming in the middle of the night. Each time, Rachel would hold her and whisper, "You're safe now. I'm here." One day, the counselor told Rachel, Emma thinks she destroyed the family, that by accusing her father, she tore the family apart. Rachel's chest tightened. That night, as she put her daughter to bed, she asked gently, "Emma, let me ask again." Rachel held her daughter's hand. "Do you think we're not a family anymore?" "Because Daddy's not here." Emma nodded slightly. Tears ran down her cheeks. Rachel pulled her daughter close. Family isn't about being connected by blood or living in the same house. "Then what is it?" Emma asked in a small voice. "It's the feeling of wanting to protect the people who matter to you." Rachel looked into her daughter's eyes. "When you sense danger, who do you want to protect first? Whose voice do you listen to? That's what decides your real family." "But what about Daddy? Daddy?" Rachel chose her words carefully. "Didn't try to protect us. In fact, he sided with someone who wanted to hurt us. That's why Daddy isn't our family anymore." Emma was deep in thought. "But Emma, you were different," Rachel continued. "You were scared, weren't you? That Daddy might get angry, that you might not be believed. But in the end, you spoke up to protect Liam. That's family. You're the strongest, bravest family member of all." A small smile appeared on Emma's face. "Really? Really?" Rachel hugged her daughter. "You, me, and Liam. We're a stronger family than anyone. No one can break us." From that night on, Emma's nightmares gradually decreased. 6 months passed. David's trial ended, and the verdict was delivered as an accomplice to attempted murder. 12 years in prison. He was immediately fired from his company, and his reputation in the industry was ruined. Even David's parents abandoned their son. His mother said in court, "I didn't raise this kind of son and never came to visit him again." Melissa's sentence was even heavier. As the main perpetrator of attempted murder, 15 years in prison. Past incidents were being reinvestigated and additional charges were being considered. In court, she said at the end, "I just wanted a perfect family." But there was no remorse in her eyes at all, cold and empty. The judge ordered her to receive psychiatric treatment. Their relationship had completely fallen apart immediately after the arrest. They could in custody. They blamed each other. David claimed Melissa was threatening me, and Melissa lied that David planned everything. What they thought was love was just codependency and obsession. Rachel moved to a small apartment. Compared to their previous large house, it was modest, but there was warmth here. On the living room wall hung a picture Emma had drawn of their family, a picture of 3 people holding hands and smiling. Financially, things were tough. Her freelance work alone wasn't enough to easily raise 2 children, but Rachel's parents offered their support. "You're not alone," her mother said. "We're here." One morning, as Emma prepared for school, she said, "Mommy, today is going to be a good day." Rachel looked at her daughter. Emma's face had a genuine smile for the first time in a while. "Yes," Rachel smiled through tears. "It's going to be a good day." Liam sat in his high chair eating breakfast with his hands. He'd be turning 1 soon. He wouldn't remember that day. But Rachel wouldn't forget her daughter's courage, her own maternal instinct, and the true meaning of family. On the weekend, the 3 of them went to a nearby park. Emma held Liam and smiled at Rachel. "Mommy, look!" Liam smiling. Rachel took their picture. On her smartphone screen was the image of a happy sister and brother. 6 months since that terrible morning. It had been a long road. There were many tears and much suffering. But now, Rachel was certain. They had survived, and they would continue to survive. Family isn't determined by blood or paperwork. In times of crisis, who do you want to protect? Whose voice do you listen to? That's what decides your real family. Emma had taught her that. Her small 6-year-old daughter had taught her mother the most important thing in life. Sitting on a park bench, Rachel watched her children. Emma was playing in the fallen leaves with Liam. Their laughter echoed in the autumn air. "Thank you, Emma," Rachel whispered in her heart. "You saved us." The sun emerged from behind the clouds and bathed the entire park in gentle light. Emma turned around and waved to her mother. Rachel waved back. "This is our family. It might not be perfect, but it's real." On the way home to the apartment that evening, Emma said, "Mommy, are we happy?" Rachel squeezed her daughter's hand. "Yes, we're happy. Truly." And that was the truth.